Namaskar. I'm Ashok Vyas, and in today's Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas, I have someone who has served in different capacities, multiple branches of knowledge became a part of his learning as well as he applied them in serving. So, someone who came from mechanical engineering background went on to do his MBA, and then he served in several countries. Now, with that global perspective with Shailesh Vyas, we will be talking about overall business environment as has unfolded due to the growth of IT and where India stands in that context. In addition, how interpersonal relationships in different cultural setting uh, also plays an important role for a leader who is managing a big team. So all that we will be learning, and there'll be some interesting anecdotes also from the life of one-time amateur cricket player, now a very senior manager in a multinational serving in India. Shailesh, welcome. Namaste.
Namaste, Ashokji. Thank you so much.
So as we begin our conversation, I'm always tempted to see the formulating years, and especially when you aspire to become an engineer. And those days, engineering was the field. So, were you happy getting into engineering, or it was sort of forced on you to become an engineer?
No, it was always had been my ambition to become an engineer, and it was purely my passion to become engineer, and I had a uh, liking for mathematics and also how things work mechanically. That was the driving factor at that point in time.
And then, why MBA?
MBA. Well, when once I was into my job and I started learning more about business, uh, somewhere I had this feeling that I was not aware of aspects of finance, aspects of marketing, etc. And coming from a purely mechanical engineering background, it was also important to understand how business works in the overall context of an end-to-end business. So if you are looking at a business from cash to cash cycle, as they call it, so you buy raw materials with cash and then work on those raw materials, convert them into finished products, sell them, and at the end of the day, you get uh, cash back. So it's called as the cash to cash cycle, as I put it. To understand the finances, the nuances of marketing, sales, to have a holistic view of the business, I felt it was important for me to learn those aspects, and that is what encouraged me to take up marketing or
So
the
now, shall
MBA
we
part.
let us look at the business scenario in Indian context, and there are some small shopkeepers, and some of them are not very well educated. But if I may look at the contrast, there are some very top industrialists or business owners and business houses where the head of the family of that particular group is actually not formally educated. So there is something in between. Along with formal education, there is some spirit of entrepreneurship. There is some business acumen. There are certain qualities which probably goes into the making of a successful entrepreneur. How would you look at and count these qualities?
That's a very good question, and it's a very important to understand this aspect. So, uh, as I have studied quite a few businesses and how they are modeled and how they work, it if you look at the entire spectrum, so on one end you have got a small time business, one-man show kind of a person. And then you have got complete big conglomerate like the multinationals, like the Tatas or Birlas, etc. So, but if you look at the roots, it's all started off with a person who thought differently and had a passion and a fire in his belly or in her belly to do something different. So you need to look at, as they say, that you don't have to do different things, but you need to do things differently to be more successful. And that is where it all starts from. Like if you take a simple example of Dhirubhai Ambani, he was a great person, and he started off with a vision, saying that this is my vision. For example, when he launched Reliance, or when he launched the telecommunications, for example, long back, he wanted to give people, the common man, the power of communicating at, I would say, very, very low, low cost, for example. And the way he went about doing that, that was a revolution in communication. And looking back at history, I would say that was the dawn of the telecommunication growth in India. It started with that one single person having a vision, saying that the common man should have the power to communicate in the remotest parts of India, and that should be completely affordable. And that actually he drove his entire vision with that single mindset. And of course, it became history later on. And as you can see now, the growth of telecommunication in India has been super phenomenal as compared to any other country. The cost of using the mobile phone in India is the cheapest even today in the world.
But I go back to another side which we just touched partly, and that is one aspect, as you mentioned, about vision. Having that innovative approach is significant. And when you look at innovative approach, you have someone either who is creative himself or is willing to empower creative minds to come up with new ideas. So that is one side, which is beautiful and fascinating. And there is another side, of course, which is going hand in hand here, is if you want to operate on a large scale with new ideas, you need courage, and you need enough of ways to sustain yourself internally as well as in terms of resources, whether they're coming from bank or other lenders. But there is third aspect, and which I think it is applicable in all the countries to some or the other extent. But in the context of India, we often have heard people saying that in order to succeed in business, you should be pro in flowing with that which we call as corruption. So talk to me. And when you look at corrupt practices, and you look at the innovative and creative, visionary, someone who dreams, do you see these two sort of mindsets are necessary to succeed? And is it possible for them to coexist? I'm just trying to understand and not pointing fingers on anybody.
Yeah, good question. So the ways of doing business ethically, or flowing along with the crowd with corrupt practices, for example, is pertinent or is existing in the world today. In the context of Indian business, uh, I have heard stories that there could be corruption, and we have seen multiple examples of that corruption as well, which have come to the public forum and are in the news. That is one aspect. But the other side of the spectrum, if you see, there are organizations, small or big, for example, Tata's or the Larsen and Toubro. These are, or the Birla Group, for example, they are these conglomerates are huge. And having worked in some of those uh, companies myself, I have witnessed firsthand in terms of they will simply refuse to have anything which is considered as unethical when it comes to corrupt practices or bribing, for example, any officials that might be part of that discussion or might be part of that process. So it's up to an individual and the policies and the culture of the organization which determines how ethical you want to be and you want to practice. So it's just a question of following your principles, what you want to be, right? So there could be, I mean, I'm not aware of, but there could be organizations which want to grow big and they want to grow big overnight kind of a thing. So those companies probably would try and take an approach which is significantly unethical and follow something which is unlawful. But that is not what we are talking about. We are talking about a company which has got ethical practices, a good culture, and the policies which would drive innovation and growth. So freedom to think, freedom to do things which would grow the company and not get penalized. And the person does not get penalized, for example, if he commits a mistake, he or she commits a mistake. So some of those examples that I gave are some of the features or some of the highlights of a good practice the company follows. So all those things are the contributing factors. The ecosystem in which you operate should be free, should not be encumbering on your own thought processes, and should be able to develop. You should be able to develop in that environment and grow.
Absolutely. I think this is a very important reference you brought with ecosystem, and there the policies of the government and the way tax is collected, or where you are taxed more and where you are given some subsidies, etc. Everything comes into play. And let's look at the macro side of India's business environment at the moment in, um let's say, post GST. So, as a layman would think that it simplified tax collection, and it probably also helped in doing away with duplicacy of tax or whichever way, but it added some additional responsibility on the part of entrepreneurs or business houses to sort of file in some details, etc. But overall, how do you see GST has impacted Indian business environment?
Well, so as you know, when GST was introduced, it had its own sets of loopholes because it was the first time that we were implementing it in India. But over the period of couple of years, or now that we are matured into a more robust system of GST, and with the government supporting it wholeheartedly with the right infrastructure, this has become a boon to the companies. Why do I say that? Because it provides a complete transparency in terms of the taxes that you are paying and what is being collected by the government. And the government, as you might be aware, is coming up with also the numbers of what is the quantum of GST which is collected every month from various companies. And I believe GST is a good thing for India. And in the coming years, I think we will see awesome development across the board in infrastructure in India and growth.
So let me bring in another dimension related to business environment of India and emphasis on foreign direct investment by the government, as well as many entrepreneurs looking at investing in India. Now you have served in Gulf, you have served in South Africa, you have frequently visited America. Of course, you have been in India, and this 37 years of your working experience and having worked with people from different nationalities, background, have led them. If someone aspires to establish or grow their business in India, coming from America, or for that matter, from any other country, is there anything which you think culturally significant from Indian point of view, which should be um, which should be in the mind of someone who is uh, getting on the business track in Indian setting, uh, especially uh, uh, for those who are managing or who need to interact with government officials, etc. Anything that comes to your mind which would help them in sort of moving smoothly.
Yes, it's a very good question. I feel that the business houses coming from outside India uh, would it would really help them if they understand the Indian culture and they have got a couple of guys on board who can actually guide them in terms of the cultural aspects of the customers and the consumers in India. So let me give you a small example in as compared to say US or within India. Uh, in India, if you see, if you have to make tea, we will have to we will buy the milk every day. The milk is supplied to the household, and I'm talking about almost 85 to 90% of the population in India. We would get our milk supplied to our homes on a daily basis, maybe a liter or 2 liters, whatever is the quantum of milk. And we say that as fresh milk being delivered to us at our household. And if you are trying to sell milk in India, for example, big conglomerates coming from outside of India, they need to be cognizant of that fact. So a very small example, maybe may not be, rhyming with what we are talking about, but it's still important. So if you have a packaging of say 5 liters only, like cans, if you get in the plastic 5 liter cans or bigger cans that we get in the USA or abroad, that would not fit in with the Indian culture. One, because we don't need this kind of milk in one go. And second, we like it fresh in India. Third is we like to have our milk boiled and then we drink it. We are not used to drinking cold milk in India. And this is, I'm giving you a specific an example or the general example across multiple households. Whereas if you're in US, that's not the culture. The people in US, for example, they don't drink hot milk when it comes to having a milk in the morning and they have milk with cereals. Milk with cereals in India is still a dream for some of the sections of the families. It's still considered to be a luxury in India, like cereals and milk, right? Uh, so what we have is tea with milk and some cookies or biscuits, for example, to have our start in the morning. So that is one aspect of culture. The second aspect of culture, I would say, is in terms of how do we have people who on board uh, who are, for example, the work culture that I'm coming to now is in terms of uh, how do we operate. So do we want to have follow, for example, in abroad, the ethical practices is considered to be the strongest, and the governments there, for example, and the companies, they have very healthy practices, ethical practices in place. And when it comes to India, while during the setup, you may encounter, a very strong need to not to follow those, for example. But if the company is very rock solid in terms of following the same ethical practices and the norms, also continued or extended to India, then it would bring in a really a very good or healthy culture of going with the ethical practices, and then maybe the Indian organizations could learn something in terms of, and also I would say some of the sections of government where possibly this could be a major challenge, would help them to overcome all these issues, and then promote a very good ecosystem, as I say, where the companies practice healthy and ethical practices.
Very, very nice. I think very, very important insight. And as we conclude this conversation focused on Indian business environment with Shailesh Vyasji, who is currently serving as Manager Customer Experience Solutions with an important multinational company, FedEx. Um, Not getting into the details of the working of your own company, yet looking at the innovative approach which you might have adopted, making use of technology in coming up with customer experience solutions. If you can briefly share your approach in responding to some of the challenges which came your way.
So the challenges are pretty much common when it comes to responding to customers, like with any other company. Uh, how do we have first time right kind of a approach? So the when you call a customer service department to talk about or to share your challenges or the issue at hand that you are facing, how do you get a resolution on the first call? For example, if you are dialing a 1-800 toll-free number, uh, what kind of response do you get? And were you able to resolve, or was the company able to resolve your query or your problem during the first call? So that is always the objective of all the service-based companies, uh, I would say, and that is primarily the secret for successful customer experience in terms of if I ever and I would say in this current scenario, the digital tools that we have at hand, for example, if you want to um, go to a company's website and do a self-service kind of a thing, like for example, if you want to do a web check-in, or you want to know the status of your application to the company which you had submitted, or you want to know the status of your income tax returns that you have submitted online. Those are the things which are termed as self-service, which you could go online and then check yourself rather than calling somebody or calling the call center, for example. So those are the digital tools which help you. And with this proliferation of the mobile handset in the hands of the common man, the mobile applications have become extremely important, and the way you leverage those applications and communicate with your customers is going to be the key to a very satisfying and fruitful customer experience going forward.
Thank you very much, Shailesh, joining me. Um, Based in India, visiting America, we talked about Indian business environment, and especially as the concluding part of our conversation, where you talk about the customers feeling that they are having a tool to access the information which is relevant for them at the time when they want to have it, and it is available. So that wonderful opportunity or facility provided by this digital media has revolutionized our lives as well as the way you serve your customers. There is much more that it should be talked with you and maybe some other time, but I appreciate your presence with us, Shaileji. And as I thank this gentleman, I thank all of you for being with us. And I hope this conversation would be helpful not just for Indian Americans, but for those who aspire to do something in India down the line. So this is Shogwaz with a lot of good wishes. Namaste.